guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over this great email that was sent from a subscriber. That's from a guy. He is 38 years old, recently divorced, as in a couple years, and he's going to share his story, how he, just like a lot of guys, thought he found the girl that was going to last forever. You're going to see that he spent his 20s, or most of his 20s, on his grind, working his tail off, being very successful in his work, saving a lot of money and all that, and then met the girl. Married her, thought everything was great. But then real quickly you're going to see that things went down the typical, stereotypical downward spiral that marriages go, where there's hardly any sex and all that. And then one day, out of the blue, she proposes something. Can you guess what that is? To open up the marriage. And of course, not for her benefit. Oh, no. For his benefit. And in that moment, guys, he knew it was over. He knew it was already on the decline. His gut told him that, but it was definitely over. And you're going to see, guys, what he does here, how he handles it, to not only get out of this where he's not hammered in the divorce process, but also definitely sticks it to her and what you're going to... Well, I don't want to say too much here, but let's just say that it ends on a high note for this guy and not for her. And once again, guys, this shows that the open marriage thing does not work. And the second she proposes this, it's over, walk away, end it. Okay? As if things were already in the decline before. And almost always, one of two things is going on. Either A, she already has a dude lined up and ready to go, and this gives her the permission to cheat. Or B, or two, she's already hooking up with some other dude. Always. So, and by the way, this is part one of a two-part series. If I were to do both parts right now, I'd be here probably for 45 minutes to an hour. That's way too long even for me to talk. So I will definitely be doing part one now, which I'll be publishing around the afternoon East Coast time. However, I won't keep you hanging. I'll be publishing part two later tonight. Way later tonight, you guys will be able to catch part two. And also, I know a lot of you guys are waiting part two of the story I did last Friday about that guy who... You all know who I'm talking about. He sent me his part two just this morning, so I'll be going over tonight, and we'll be publishing it tomorrow. So a lot of part twos coming up today and tomorrow. So, grab your beer, grab your popcorn. This is a good one. Starts off, he says, or part one, he says, "Hello, strong, successful male. I'm fairly new to your content, mostly by accident. One of your videos showed up in my feed, and the title made me curious, so I clicked it. It was a few days ago, and the story was about a guy who was married and his wife asked for an open marriage, and he reluctantly agreed, but was miserable. Then one of his female coworkers showed him one of your videos, and he started changing his thinking. In that video, he referenced a different video, and I saw the link that you posted and watched it as well." He's referring to what I just mentioned about the incoming part two, and it's coming. "That was my motivation for sending you my own story. I'm not as weak as the first guy and nowhere even close as to savage as the second. But I appreciate the information you're putting out there. If I had some of it earlier in life, I might have saved myself a few years of pain. But as they say, what does not kill you makes you stronger." Absolutely. "I'm 38 years old at the moment, but my divorce was finalized in 2019, when I was 35 years old, after being married for almost 8 years to a woman that I thought I would be with forever." How many guys thought that? "My ex-wife is a year younger than me, and we were married when I was 27 after dating for 2 years. Smack! 2 years? No. You need way longer than that, amigo, and I know you're aware of this now. 2 years, she can really hide who she is. I know people's real personality comes out after a few months, but still 2 years, people can put on be in the honeymoon period and have high hopes and all that. And notice, by the way, I'm going to assume she was probably pushing 30. So gals are always trying to get that ring before they hit the big 3-0. And I'm sure you're well aware of that. 2 years, you need way, way longer than that. I knew her for a few years before we started dating because we had mutual friends. But I'll spare you all the mushy details of how we got together." Yes, thank you. I don't need to hear that. "After college, I was working a couple jobs and putting as many resumes out as I could. My degree is in business marketing, and I ended up getting a job at a national retailer in sales. I wasn't bothering with relationships at the time and put 100% of my effort into my job. When my coworkers were going home at the end of their shifts, I was staying late and doing everything I could to stand out. I had some friends, but my entire focus was on my career, and my efforts paid off. Good job, bro. Your 20s is for your purpose, establishing yourself, being on your grind in your job, putting away money. This is what I talk about all the freaking time. Over the next couple of years, I got several pay raises and a couple of promotions. By the time I was 25 years old, I held a manager position, and all the work I had been putting in by working nearly 12 hours a day were starting to pay dividends. Without any other distractions in my personal life, it was easy to do. I ended up buying a house that I lived in before I turned 26. But the hours I was working and no distractions in my personal life, my retirement accounts were looking good, and honestly, women were the last thing in my mind. My personal goal was to be financially secure by the time I was 50, so I could enjoy the last part of my life in relative comfort. That, my friends, is a guy in his grind in his 20s. That's what I want all you guys to be doing. Not chasing relationships, not chasing ass, chasing success. Okay? You can get all the ass and relationships later in life. Those crucial years, your late teens and 20s, where you're learning a trade, mastering yourself, putting away money, busting your butt at your career or business, it will pay off huge. Look, multiple promotions. He's putting away money. Got a house at 25 or 26. This is awesome. That's great. Unfortunately, that momentum train stopped when he decided to, with this girl, get married. And you are going to see what happens there. I met the girl. I'm not saying her name, just in case this is actually her name in real life, and I want to try to not say people's real names. I met the girl when I was 23 years old for some mutual friends, and we started going out on casual dates about 1 year later. I made it clear from the beginning what my focus was on my career, and she was still working on her own. We spent some quality time together, but neither of us were taking anything too seriously. Over time, our casual dating started to turn more serious, and we were married a few years later. One of the biggest factors for me was that she wasn't a drain in my life. At first, we complimented each other, and she never interfered with my goals. Both of our families adored us, but it was my uncle's second wife that helped me the most in my concerns. She's a divorce attorney, but she wasn't always. She started her career as a real estate attorney, but it was after her son went through a divorce and got destroyed, which ultimately led her to taking his own life, that she changed her career path. Oh, that's terrible. Now she works for a law firm that exclusively represents men in family law and divorce cases, and she's very passionate about it. So let's remember his aunt here, who is a divorce attorney and works for a firm specializes exclusive men representing men in family law cases. Let's remember this. You want to talk about a great ally to have on your side in your family. She was the one that recommended and eventually drafted our prenuptial agreement. She also recommended that we maintain separate finances, which we did. Very smart. That's what I tell you guys to do. I continued to pay the mortgage and utilities, and she, I'm trying to not say her name here, she paid for luxury items like cable, phone, and other subscriptions, and we shared the cost of food, entertainment like vacations and dates. We both had good jobs, so we didn't intermix our insurance, and it worked out great. I knew I was paying more in the relationship, but I didn't mind. My aunt was hopeful that my marriage would work out, but with a better than 50% chance of divorce, it would make a potential split easier down the road. Kind of like wearing a life preserver while out on a boat. You don't expect the boat to sink, but if it does, it'd be nice to have something to keep you from drowning. 100%. And I can tell you absolutely that is true. When I was kayaking in Martha's Vineyard a few years ago, and thank God I wore that freaking life vest, that's all I'm going to say. Some big waves can knock that kayak over and send that kayaking out into the ocean. And yes, guys, I could have died. And you wouldn't have me telling you these stories every day. Always wear that life preserver when you're out. The first 4 years of marriage were great. We had a lot of fun together, and our SEX life was active 4 to 5 times a week. There you go. That's very healthy. Both of our careers were productive, and by the time I was 31, we were living a comfortable life. Neither of us were in a rush to have children. Even though both of our families were starting to badger us about it, we just didn't have enough free time to include that kind of responsibility. No rush. And it's not your family's business what you do in the bedroom or having kids or any of that. But that's what families do. They're going to get on you about kids. We've been together for 6 years and married a little more than 4 when I first started noticing some changes in her. They weren't big changes, but our our SEX time has started to taper down to 2 to 3 days a week, and more times than not, she was too tired to do anything when she got home from work. Where we would normally go out and do something on a Friday or Saturday night, started shifting to sitting at home watching something on TV. For you guys that are married or were married, does this sound familiar to you? Starts out hot and heavy in the beginning, and then downward spiral, downward spiral. The only thing I'm not hearing yet is her putting on 20 pounds or chopping her hair or stop wearing makeup or things like that. But guys also let themselves go too. Let's be honest here. By the time we had been married for 6 years, the SEX time had drifted down to once or twice every 3 months. And being in the house with her was more like living with a roommate. She wasn't bitchy or nagging, she was just there. This is one of the reasons I tell you guys to be careful about marriage. Even if you don't get raked over the coals yet, and she's actually alright, eventually it gets to the point that people get bored. They know everything about the other person, the SEX becomes next to nothing, and you just have a roommate. Right? And nobody wants that. That's why you spend years getting to know someone before you eventually settle down and being very healthy individuals. Emotionally, mentally, all that. I think the biggest indication that our marriage was failing was when she told me that I snore and moved around too much while sleeping, and it was causing her not to get enough sleep, leaving her exhausted at work. She ended up moving into one of the guest rooms. Yep. Bad sign. By the time our 7th anniversary came along, we were basically living as platonic roommates. I could count the number of times we had intimacy in the last year on one hand and wouldn't need 3 of my fingers. I had no idea what was going on in my marriage, but it felt like I was being held hostage. I think we had gone more than 6 months since the last time we had any you-know-what time, and I was starting to wonder if she was cheating on me. Nothing else made any sense. We were in the prime of our lives and in good shape. If nothing's wrong with her physically, or wrong with you physically, and you're not hooking up, something's up, especially when you were so hot and heavy early on. And let's remember something, guys. Given all the stories I do, if you've been watching me a while, the gals enjoy the SEX just as much as the guys. And usually if they're not getting it at home, they're getting it someplace else. Not always, but a lot. And these stories, you start to notice a pattern here. And, well, you're going to see. It was after being rejected for what seemed like the millionth time that I broke down and asked her if she was cheating on me. She seemed offended that I would even ask her such a question. I told her that even if that wasn't the case, what was her reason for not having intimacy, or even seeming to like to be around me, and she just repeated what she always did, that she was just too tired and not in the mood. I told her that unless something changed, we were going to need to figure out if our relationship was going to continue, because I'm not a monk and refuse to be treated like one. Good for you for standing up for yourself. Exactly. You're now like platonic roommates. You're like platonic friends being roommates. And now she's in the other room and you never do anything together and no affection. Man's got needs. And you have a right to stand up for yourself. I'm not sure if it was the look of shock on her face or the barely masked disgust that gave me a start, but I think that was the moment I knew our marriage was over. She tried to tell me how much she loved me and the life we had, but I didn't have a life. I had a prison cell that I had to pay mortgage to live in. I was frustrated and didn't feel like arguing with her, so I told her I would give her some time, but I wasn't going to wait forever. A lot of guys would have been done long before you, but I'm sure you're thinking in the back of your mind, I'm damn glad my auntie, who is the divorce attorney specializing in male family law, insisted I got that prenup. And it was a good counsel. And old auntie, the lawyer, is definitely going to come back into the picture very soon. That night, she came to my room and started getting frisky, which led to the first intimate contact we had in nearly half a year. Oh, now she's getting frisky now that she realizes she may lose her husband. Imagine that. What I tell you guys when women start to have uncertainty in their relationships. At first, I thought she might have seen how much she'd been neglecting me, but that was wishful thinking. By the time we got down to business, it was like having you-know-what with a mannequin. I've heard people joke about the starfish SAX, but it was shocking to be that with someone that was clearly doing out of obligation and not passion. Right. She's going to do it to keep you around, but you're not getting the good stuff. You're not getting the enthusiasm. It was obvious that she didn't want to be there, so I rolled her off the bed and told her to go to bed. At first, she tried to argue, saying she didn't understand what was wrong. And I told her I don't need pity sex from my wife, and she left the room crying. You knew her heart wasn't in it. Yeah, it's over. Over the following weeks, the mood in the house was not very good. She tried to talk to me several times, trying to explain that she would try harder, but nothing really changed. It was about 3 weeks after the pity SCX that she got home from work, and I could tell that she had something on her mind by the expression that she was wearing. After she changed out of her work clothes, she sat down beside me on the couch and said we needed to talk. My first thought was that she was going to tell me that she wanted a divorce, and I'll be honest, it wasn't going to hurt my feelings if she did. What tumbled out of her mouth left me a bit speechless. She said how sorry she was that she's been neglecting my needs and told me how much she loved me and our life together. But I thought she was going to tell me that she was going to try harder or suggest some kind of marriage counseling to get us back on track. Nope. She said that she didn't want to lose me and understood that she wasn't taking care of me. Then she suggested opening up the marriage so I could get my needs met, but that she loved me and didn't want to get a divorce. Let's remember something here, guys. Who's paying the majority of the bills? Who's giving her the comfortable life? All the other stuff. Him. So why, in her mind, should I screw up a bad thing? Now, do you think any woman that loves their guy is going to just so easily hand him off to hook up with other girls? And do you really think that she's doing this all for him? Please. And remember, almost always, either they're hooking up with another dude or dudes, or they got a dude or dudes on standby ready to go. I'm not a prude, but that wasn't something I ever expected to hear my wife say. And I never really been the sleep around guy, and I had no idea how to respond to what she was saying. There's one, get the fuck out. I think I just stared at her for about 5 minutes before my brain caught up to what she suggested. I could tell she was so nervous, and I asked her why she would even offer to do something like that. She said that she loved me and understood that men have needs, and she wasn't taken care of. My first instinct was to just throw in the towel, but I remember seeing a video a while back on a different channel about if they ask, they're probably already cheating. I had no idea what to believe. I told her I needed some time to think about everything, and she said she understood, but was only suggesting it to help me. To help you, more like to help her. So, ordinarily, you would think, that's it, it's over, we're done. But you see, the guy handles this just right given the situation. Now, remember, she's saying, I'm doing this for you because I just can't meet your needs. Well, she's not meeting his needs because she obviously lost all love and affection towards him a long time ago, and she's being fulfilled someplace else. So one could argue that she was definitely neglecting him on purpose to reach the point that she could then bring this up. The next couple of days, I was mostly in a fog trying to figure out how to process everything. One thing I was fairly certain of was my marriage was over. The problem I had was I had no idea how to move forward to start that process. It was the following weekend when I drove over to my uncle's house to talk to his wife, the aunt who is an attorney. At the very least, she could give me some advice. I've seen too many stories about men getting demolished in court, and I didn't want that. I understand that sometimes things just don't work out, and I still loved her. I didn't want to cause her any pain. But I didn't want the court system turning me into a victim either. Well, we'll see that, I don't want to say anything. I spent about an hour telling my aunt and uncle about everything that had been going on, and when I finished, my aunt told me that the odds were that she was already cheating on me from the cases that she's worked. It was more than likely someone she works with. It was very hard to hear, but something in the back of my mind already knew. I should have listened to my gut a long time ago. My aunt asked me what I was going to do, and I told her that I was going to file for divorce. Even if she wasn't cheating on me, I couldn't keep living the way that I was. Good, because you couldn't. She nodded and said if I needed to come up with a game plan to ensure that I could protect my assets and get as clean of a break as possible. Then she asked what I said when my wife proposed opening the marriage, and I told her that I didn't give her an answer, and she smiled and said perfect. I was a little confused about her reaction, but she got up and left my uncle and me talking in the living room. When she came back, she had some papers with her and sat down and started reading them before she started laughing. I asked her what was so funny, and she showed me the papers that she was holding. It was the prenup agreement she had drawn up for both my wife and me. She explained that there was an infidelity clause that would invoke the agreement, and we both would lead the marriage with what we came into it, while all marital property would be split down the middle. I told her that I didn't give any evidence of infidelity, and she grinned and said I would soon enough before she explained what she was thinking. So this is where the plan is going to come about by his auntie, the lawyer, to use the prenup and all that to, what that girl signed to work against her. It took about an hour to explain everything, but the summary is this. I was going to agree to the open marriage, but not exercise my options. In my state, there's a mandatory separation period of 6 months before you can file for divorce unless it's uncontested. In that time, I need to gather any evidence I could of my wife seeing other men. I asked her if it was going to be a problem if I agreed to open up the marriage, and she said that, listen to this, guys. She said that verbal agreements are not admissible as evidence unless there are witnesses that can testify. These are overt acts that indicate the agreed upon actions that were mutual, or if there's anything in writing indicating the existence of said verbal agreement. Well, hey, there's no witnesses, and there's no written agreement about this open marriage thing. Without some method of verification, it's considered hearsay. A marriage contract is a legal document, so unless there's additional documents that's admissible in court, no verbal agreement would stand up in court, and as she exercised her options, it would invoke the prenuptial agreement. Wonderful. Now, I'm sure these certain things can depend on the state that you live in. I'm guessing. Every state's different. I asked her about the mandatory separation and asked if that meant I had to have her move out. And she said that you can be legally separated and still live under the same roof as long as there are no behaviors that indicate you are still working together as a couple. But if I could find evidence of her with other men, it wouldn't matter. I'm not going to lie, it all sounded dubious, and I asked her if she's ever done this before. She told me that in her time at her law firm, she's represented more than 40 men in divorces, and over half of them include some form of open relationship. Holy shit. So this unfortunate thing is really popping up, guys, left and right. I mean, I'm seeing these things pop up, articles about this in mainstream media, and not against it, but promoting this bullshit. I mean, the lawyers are probably just foaming at the mouth like, yes, as if they didn't already have enough fucking business. She used this method a handful of times, but most of the time the men agreed to the arrangement before finding out their options, and as soon as they go out with another woman, it evens the playing field. I was going to file for divorce anyway, and if this could help me protect my retirement investments, it was worth a try. You're damn right, brother. When I got home, Denise was on the phone talking to someone, but she hung up as soon as I walked in. Gee, who could she be talking to? I couldn't help but feel like she was talking to another man. But she asked where I was. I told her I was just out visiting family and said we needed to talk. I hated that my marriage was over. I really did love her, and now I was about to become a statistic. I told her that I'd been thinking about her proposal, but I didn't know anything about open marriages and didn't know how it was supposed to work. She said that she didn't want to do anything to hurt our marriage, but she understood how she had been neglecting me and didn't want me to have to live like that. What a freaking snake. She's been neglecting you because she's getting it from someplace else and making you, moving the chess pieces in a position that pretty much she can get what she wants and you agree to this open relationship thing. Then she blew my mind. She said that she loved me so much that she'd be okay with me getting my needs met outside of our home. No woman that truly is in love with their guy will ever want any other woman touching their man. Ever. I asked, okay, how does it work? She said that we would come up with some basic rules to make sure nothing was going to affect our marriage. And I told her I had no idea what kind of rules could do that. It was obvious that it was something that she'd been thinking about because she already had some rules ready to go. Here are the rules she had on top of her head. Now listen to this. Rule number 1. No more than 2 dates with the same person so there's no risk of catching feelings for the other person. Rule number 2. Nobody we both know. Rule number 3. Always use protection to avoid any STDs or pregnancies. Rule number 4. No staying the night at someone else's house. Rule number 5. If either of us is uncomfortable, we agree to close the relationship, no questions asked. Right there. If either of us is uncomfortable. Well, how many stories have I done, guys, on this channel or the other one? Wife wants an open marriage. The guys go along with it out of fear they're going to lose her. She's hooking up with dudes left and right. He can't get girls, but eventually finds one that he really likes. They get close, and she's worried, and she wants to close the open marriage. Every time. Every time she opened her mouth, my heart died a little more. I was doing my best to keep the expression off my face, but I doubt that I was completely successful because after her last rule, she tried to comfort me saying that she promised that she wasn't going to get me jealous and we would be okay. I'm sorry, man, you went through this bullshit. And he really loved her. Remember he said in the beginning, I thought it was going to be forever. Welcome to the world we live in, guys. I'm Gabor 2.0. I'm not sure if you ever experienced dry heaves after a bad night of drinking, but that was what I was feeling like. I love this woman and plan to spend the rest of my life with her. To sit there and hear her casually talk about how we were going to manage going out to F other people made me want to ram my head into a concrete wall. When I was able to get my emotions under control, she asked me if I thought the rules were okay, and I told her that I had a few rules of my own. She looked a little surprised, but asked what they were. Here are the rules I came up while listening to her. Now these are his rules. Rule number 1, nobody that we work with. As soon as I said that, I saw a brief flash of worry across her face, and it told me that my aunt was probably right. I felt a little sick. Rule number 2, open phone policy. If we're going to do this, it was going to be based in complete honesty. Again, she had a look of worry on her face, and it told me everything I needed to know. Rule number 3, no ex-boyfriends or girlfriends because that would violate her first rule. She didn't have a reaction to that one, so I assumed that it was someone she worked with, and I was already in an open relationship and didn't know it. That's what I thought, and that's what his aunt, the very experienced divorce attorney, thought too. I told her that was all I could think of, and she was doing her best to reassure me that we were going to be okay, and this would be a great way to put some excitement back in our marriage. Yeah, well, there's other ways to put excitement back into your marriage, and this ain't it, honey. I'm not going to lie, I felt dead inside, but told her fine. The rest of the weekend was surreal. It was like looking at a woman I used to know. She was showing me all kinds of attention, talking to me, and even tried to initiate Sunday night, which I turned down to her dismay. I told her I needed some time to wrap my mind around everything. I'm pretty sure that night, while laying alone in my room, was the final time I cried since I was a kid. And gentlemen, that is the end of part 1. I know you want to kill me because you're dying to hear part 2, but we're looking at close to half an hour now, and I need a freaking break. So, I'm going to be doing part 2 later tonight, so you'll get it in a few hours, probably 9 o'clock East Coast time when I'm sitting on the couch watching fucking Mad Men or something. That's when I'll publish the video. So guys, there you go. It's terrible. How many stories I do regarding the open marriage, open relationship thing. They don't work. But fortunately, this guy handles this well. And you're going to see in part 2 how this thing goes down. And she never sees it coming. Justice will be served. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.